In this video, I'm going to show you how to use adaptive card within Microsoft Copilot Studio. Now, before we start with adaptive card in Microsoft Copilot Studio, we need to understand what an adaptive cards are. So if you navigate to this URL, adaptivecards.io, it basically gives you an information about how is adaptive card structured. Adaptive cards are basically platform agnostic snippets of UI. So it's a piece of code. You embed that code within your application, and then you get all the authoring, styling in a JSON format for that specific application. Now, as you see from this text over here, it says when delivered to a specific app, the JSON is transformed into a native UI that automatically adapts to its surrounding. So what does that mean is, like, if you use this, if you prepare an adaptive card and if you put that in a Teams, or if you put an adaptive card in Copilot Studio, both will have a kind of a similar interface. It won't be same because it will adapt to the Teams theming, or it will adapt to that specific host application theming, and it will deliver a rich and interactive card for the experience. Now, let me go into Copilot Studio over here. Now I picked one of the Copilot which I have created. I'll navigate to topics. I'll click on topics, add a topic from blank, and from here I'll just create one example. So I'll just call it as Girish adaptive card. Now, why would you use an adaptive card is because from a an interface perspective within Copilot, mostly people would like to converse in a text format. But then, what if you want to render the information in a an image or in a more visually appealing way? So, if you want to use that, then you may need to go into adaptive card. Uh, if I click on add a node and if I click on send a message, now this is about simple text. Okay, so if you're conversing with a Copilot, you will just say, hello, how can I help you? Okay, or maybe if you want to show some information about, say, flight details, you must just type in flight details for say American Airlines, and you'll just say SFO to JFK, and then you will just type in some information. Now this from a content perspective, you can make use of bold, italic, bullets, numbering bullets. But what beyond that, if you want to use an information platform to deliver a nice user interface, so for that you may need to use adaptive card. Okay, so that's a use case. Now, instead of putting everything in a text format, what I'm going to do, I'll click on add and I'll click on adaptive card. In adaptive card, when you open the adaptive card, you will see something called as edit JSON, open adaptive card designer, and then from here you will get this JSON. Now this JSON is, it says type is adaptive card, which will always remain the same. Then we have a schema URL, version, and the body. That's it. Okay, so if you get this code and paste it over here, you will have that adaptive card, and then you can hook in all your variables to make it dynamic. Now in this example, I'm just going to show you how you can make some information static. Now, edit JSON, if you select over here, you can also see this in the format of a formula as well. Okay, so as you see over here, in the bottom you see type as record and output as this, right? So I'll just take this off, I'll put it in JSON. Now there is a hyperlink over here. You can navigate to this hyperlink. It will take you to that adaptivecards.io. Now this is the same URL which I just showed you a moment ago. Now this is adaptivecards.io. This is a designer interface. Now from here you can actually design the adaptive card. Now this interface is a bit engaging and you may get lost over here. Now, two things to look into it. First thing, this adaptive card version currently which I'm doing is 1.6. Okay, and it is giving me a warning. It says 1.6 is greater than the version supported by the bot framework web chat. So you need to make sure that anything we build with a lower version, okay, compared to what is available. Now this adaptive card, whatever output you will generate will be of a higher version, so which is of 1.6, which is shown over here, right? Now what we need to do, scale down to the version number. So because we want bot framework web chat to be compatible with Microsoft Copilot Studio interface, so that's why we will be using 1.3 version. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to keep in mind. Now, where to change the version? Here you will see something called as target version. 1.6, make that to 1.3 or 1.2, 1.1, but not 1.4, 5, or 6. So let's pick up 1.3. Now, as you see over here in this interface, we can design the card structure. Okay, this is one example which is given. So this is how the card is designed, and this is the code for the card payload editor code over here, and this is how the card is structured. Okay, so this is how you read this interface, and this is a sample data editor section. Now, to keep it simple, I'm not going to do anything complex over here. You just click on new card. Okay. Now, before you do that, you need to understand which host application are you looking into: bot framework, web chat, Outlook actionable message, Microsoft Teams, Viva connection, Cortana skills, bot framework, Cortana skills, classic, federated search. So you have a whole bunch of things. For Copilot Studio, I would like to pick up from bot framework, web chat. And you just click on new card. So new card, it will give you a brand new interface. You can create from a JSON schema. You can use a blank card, or you can use the ready-made template which is available over here. So you can scroll down and you can see how you can create an adaptive card. Now this adaptive card is for showing you the flight information, for showing some gallery, asking some questions, giving some multiple options, a form, basically a form for submission, input text element, selecting of languages, confirming the order for a restaurant, confirming pickup and delivery aspects, and showing weather. So you can make this nice looking interface, scoreboard, adaptive cards for product video, and there are like whole bunch of options. So for stock market, you can see here weather compact. So all this information you can pick in, but then for simple application, I'll just click on blank card. Now once you click on blank card, you get the card payload editor over here. First thing, what we are going to do, we are going to just put a simple text block over here. Now I'll just put a text block, and here in the text blocks, if I select this text block, I'll just type in a simple text, my name, Girish Uppal. Okay. Now, what options you get from doing a text box? You can put a spacing around it. So you can put a small spacing or an extra large spacing. So if I put an extra large spacing over here, I can put in horizontal alignment as center. So I'll just put that. If I want to put a separator, I can put that as well. So I'm not going to touch on that. It's a simple text. So this is good for me. Now, what if I want to have a rich text? So if I click on rich text block, I'll just put rich text block over here. And then again, the same thing, I'll just put a center alignment, and I will start adding some text over here in the rich text block. Now, there is a sample data editor, there is a card payload editor over here, so we can play around with the context of the element. We can set element properties, everything we can do. So we can put a text, we can put a rich text block. Now I'm going to just remove the rich text block, and I'm going to put something called as an image. Okay, so if I just put an image over here, here I need to bind this image. Now if you see over here, this is image, image data context, and the URL. Now let me pick up any company's URL. So if I go to microsoft.com, I'll just copy this image link, and let's see if it works or not. So I'll just paste this link over here, and as you see over here, Microsoft logo is displayed. Spacing, small left, horizontal element, left, center, right. I'll just put it center, and I have this adaptive card. Now I'm not going to do much anything fancy. I'll just take this adaptive card and copy this code. So I'll just copy this code over here and try to put it in my adaptive card which I have built using Copilot Studio. So I'll just select everything, remove everything, paste the JSON. Now the moment I do that and I'll click on save, I can see that adaptive card listed over here. So as you see over here, there is no phrases to show. Let me add a phrase. I'll just say adaptive. Okay, so this is just one phrase which I have added over here. So if I trigger this topic, then I should be able to see the adaptive card. So it's currently saving, and as you see over here, this is the adaptive card which I've created. Now we can create very complex adaptive cards, so we can create a form as well. So if I go over here and I say, take for example, if you want to have a form, okay, now form will ask for some input. Okay, so we'll just click on text block over here, and we will just uh, call it, say, some user information. Okay, so I'll just say user information. Then we can have various controls. So input text. So I'll just put input text, and in the placeholder text, I will just say enter first name, and in the label, I'll just say first name. And so the input text which you put in, you need not put a separate label. A label comes as a part of the input text. That's why I can see over here placeholder will put ask you for enter first name, and that's it. Similarly, if I put another control over here, so input dot text, and I will again put some more information. I'll just put label as last name, placeholder text as last name. Okay, so we are now constructing a form. We can create a complex form which can ask for various information. It can even validate information. Okay, so if you have this text, so if I have this last name, and if we want to put some validation around it, we can say I want the last name to be required, so it becomes star over here. We can even put a regex. So if you are asking for an information like an email address or telephone number which needs to be properly formatted, or a pin code or a postal code, you can do that. So I'll, in the interest of this uh, video, I'm going to just keep it very simple. So if I see this user information over here, I can put the color. So I say let me put it as, so here you will not get a color as red, green, pink. It will all depend on how you want this information in terms of a relative color. So dark, light, accent, good, warning, action. So if I just put it as warning, it will be in, say, uh, orange color. If it's good, it's in green. If it's in attention, it's in red. So let me put it as good over here, and this is how my form will look like. Okay, so first name, last name. But what we are going to do with this is, like, we need to submit this, right? So submission happens with something called as an action set. So if I just drag and drop action set over here, and then from here I will click on add an action, it will say action is opening the URL or submitting it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on action.submit, and this is the button which I get. So action.submit is the title. So I can say this can be a submit. Okay, and I can put a different style. I can say positive or destructive. So positive is the blue color, destructive is red, depending on the theme what is set currently. And I can even put an icon URL over here. So let's see if I can get an icon URL. So uh, let me go into the designer, and let me see if I have something in my clipboard. So let me pick up some icon. So I have this icon over here, and I can see the Canada flag over here, right? So I can even put an icon in the button. Now you can put whatever you want depending on your requirement. I can add multiple action sets. So if I click on action set, again, you can click on action, and you want and to open a URL, you can do that. And here in the open a URL, you can just type in Girish website. You can put the style as destructive, and you can put the URL. So HTTPS. So it need not be just a submit button. You can open a URL as well, right? So this is how you can add a button. Now I can put another action set, and I'll call this as cancel. Okay. So when once you put an action set, click on action, and then you can show action toggle visibility, show card, or submit. I'll just say submit. And then from here, action submit, I'll just say cancel. And cancel is also again a destructive operation. I'll say the destructive style, and I'll not do anything on that sort. Okay, so that's it. This is my form, all good. I'll just copy this, and then I'll take this and paste it in my Copilot Studio. So this is the adaptive card. I'll just select, paste it, and click outside, click on save, and it will start adding this information in the form. Now remember, whenever you use a form, or if you use a button on it, you need to be setting some input. Now as you see over here, it says property cannot be null, required input should have an error message. Now I have made this error purposefully just to show you that if you do not configure your card correctly, you will get an error. Now, what error it is? It says required input should have an error message. So that means if we go into this design interface, remember we have made this last name as mandatory. Now, last name, when we made it mandatory, it is asking for this input error message. So I'll just say last name is mandatory. So if I add this message and then I copy this code over here and just paste it, click outside, click on save, then it will process the input, and then it will again giving you some more error information. So it says property cannot be null. Now sometimes these error messages are not clear, as you see over here, which property. Okay, so again you come over here and then you start troubleshooting this information. So I'm just showing you this because it is not that anything you create in adaptive cards you can just copy paste and then it will work magically fine. You need to configure something correctly. So let's do one thing. Let me take this last name, take this required field off. Okay, and I'll just save this. Let me copy this again and then paste this record. Now it says property cannot be null. Now this is not related to that error validation. That's what I can understand from this. So let's do one thing. Let me take this cancel operation off. Let me take this everything remain as it is now. I'll just copy this, Control C, and then again come back. So what you may need to do is, like, you may need to do that trial and error approach just to see any action which you have configured within your form, you have configured it correctly or not. Sometimes the mandatory fields are not uh, really like say explainable in the adaptive card interface. So you may need to test some piece of information within the form and then get it sorted. So if you see over here in submit, and then in Girish website you have this website link created, and then you need to set various items over here. Now when we created this form, for every item, so first name, last name, submit, this button, okay, everything should have an ID set. Okay, now as you see over here, input.text data context not set, only show when not set. So ID, this is an important part. So if you are forming any naming convention within your organization, you can just say first name. Okay, so if I'm using this format, I'll use first name. For last name, I'll just say last name, and then for submit button, I'll say btn dash submit, and then for Girish website button, I'll say btn dash website. Okay, now let's copy this and then put it over here. Now you see that this form is loaded correctly. Now, why I didn't show you that ID first is because just to make you aware that there are some things which are mandatory, which is not quite evident by a star button over here, right? Star icon. So for every form you create, you need to have this information, because this information is an important piece of information which you will be using for passing information or receiving information to the adaptive card. So this is pretty much important. So this is how you're going to refer first dash name for the first control, last dash name for the second control, btn dash submit, and btn dash website for this button control, right? So this is how you can use. Now if you see over here, this is how the form will get rendered. And let's test this. So I'm just use the phrase as adaptive. I'll click on save. I'll refresh this, and now we have successfully built a form using adaptive card, and then you can use this to pass on this information to your Copilot Studio. Okay, so now we are not relying on the basic card or just to send a message text. We are able to use image, we are able to use text, we are able to use form, and we are able to even execute an action. So if I click on Girish website, it will take me to see the target URL. If I type in something over here, Girish and Uppal, and then if I click on submit, this information will be passed on to my Copilot Studio. Now, we haven't initiated or we haven't configured an action, but this video is just to show an example like how you can basically use adaptive card to render a form or render a nice user interface. Now, in my upcoming videos, what I'm going to show you is that how to use a control, basically this form, and try to get in the information and hook it up to your backend interface. So if you have a contacts table and if you're collecting contact information from a bot or a co-pilot, then what you can do is you can add a node, and with the help of variables you can use this first name and last name information, store it in a variable or store it in the backend interface, and run say Power Automate flow to store those information back into say database. So you can even launch a survey, you can even launch a various quick form solution for your customers. So one of the example would be like if you want to ask for basic information from the user for say some event, or if you are registering for an event, or if it's like a catering management company, or if it's like a hotel reservation system. So you can do all these things within this adaptive card. So that's it, folks. This is all about adaptive card within Microsoft Copilot Studio. Thanks for watching.